During Halloween in 1981, a couple were badly beaten and murdered inside this house on West 22nd Street in Chelsea, Manhattan. Not only were they beaten over a prolonged period, but the killer or killers concluded their activity by shooting them both at close range in the back of the head, executing them before exiting the crime scene. But who committed this double murder and what was the motive? It's also a case associated with a conspiracy theory. A conspiracy theory that many believe to be true, whereas others are inclined to view it as some kind of a myth as described in a Google search as a widely held but false belief or idea. Hi there my friend, I'm Royston and welcome back to Tea and Crime. As it's Halloween today, I thought it'd be appropriate to take a look at this particular case which is buried in mystery. Whether it's completely true or not will be up to you to determine. But before you can decide, we need to do a deep dive into the mysterious double murder on Halloween 1981. One of the victims was a 39-year-old male named Ronald Sisman, the owner of the apartment where the double murder took place. He was a freelance photographer who operated a couple of photography studios from within his home. A former client of his was an actress named Melanie Haller, who at one time had a role on the TV show Welcome Back, Kotter, starring this guy, before he went on to make it big in Hollywood. However, in 1980, Sisman made an appearance in the news when the actress accused him of trying to drug her. It started when she was visiting his apartment as a client. She was talking to him about a traumatic event she'd experienced in the past, and at one point, she became hysterical. Sisman was concerned regarding her heightened emotions and decided to give her a tranquilizer that actually belonged to Melanie to calm her down. Or at least that's what he told officers whilst under investigation. And it wasn't the only time that this woman had accused someone of wrongdoing. A month earlier, Haller attended a party at a mansion owned by Roy Radin. He was a millionaire and movie producer. Roy was inclined to hold regular, wild parties which included orgies, drugs and all kinds of seedy activities. This particular party was held in the Southampton area of New York, and while there she claimed she was drugged at gunpoint, beaten and essayed by Roy, who also made sure to have everything he did to her filmed. However, he wasn't charged with SA or the drug allegations, but he was fined $1,000 and given 3 years probation for illegally possessing a firearm. The case against Sisman, which happened a month later, was eventually dropped as Melanie failed to cooperate with police. The other person gunned down in that Manhattan apartment was Ronald Sisman's girlfriend, 20-year-old Elizabeth Platzman, known as Liz by those close to her. Liz enjoyed a nice upbringing in Roslyn Park on the North Shore of Long Island, living in a beautiful house somewhere down this part of Main Street. The Roslyn Duck Pond observed here was in view of the family home. Their neighbours were well-to-do, with many of them being extremely wealthy. Liz received a first-class education and, in her adolescence, attended the Friends Academy, which was an exclusive private school for the rich, where many lawyers, doctors and other professionals were taught. She graduated from the academy in 1979 before joining the prestigious Smith College in Northampton, Massachusetts, where she was studying art as an honours student. However, there was no connection between her upbringing and the violent death she suffered. So what transpired on that fateful day? Well, Ronald and Liz were hanging out together at his apartment and the couple shared a bottle of wine and were talking about things that excited them. What excited Ronald was his photography. In fact, they engaged in an impromptu photo shoot where Ronald was getting some interesting shots of his girlfriend. Suddenly there was a knock on the door, probably trick-or-treat as they thought, as it was Halloween. But chillingly, this Halloween was about to become their very last one, ever. As soon as the door was opened, someone or possibly a group of people made their way inside while wearing masks. Whether it was a group or an individual, whoever it was, violently attacked the unprepared couple, beating them to a pulp. They then stripped them both of their identity, taking their driving licenses and any other ID belonging to them, including a .25 caliber pistol registered to Ronald. Their ordeal wasn't over yet, as a perpetrator, or several of them, shot both victims in the back of the head execution style, possibly using the stolen gun, before making their escape from the crime scene. When the police finally arrived, they were baffled by this double murder, noticing the door wasn't damaged, and this gave them the impression that Ronald knew the culprits, as it seemed he let them in willingly, although it's very possible that they may have forced themselves in. Both victims were covered in bruises. The walls throughout the apartment were blood-splattered, suggesting they were probably interrogated and severely beaten prior to being shot. And this was supported by the fact that the property had been ransacked as furniture had been torn apart. So much so that investigators couldn't walk around without stepping on stuff. The scene was described as something you'd see in a horror movie, and it appeared as though the killer or the killers were searching for a specific item, and that item will shock you. The initial theory, though, was it was drug-related. Neighbours informed the police that Ronald had plenty of clients who visited him, and they suspected he was dealing in cocaine, marijuana, and other types of drugs due to his activity, frequently running through the night. And police found some drugs, I believe, in the form of powder in the apartment, which initially stood out as a root cause for the double killing. They also identified he was an associate of movie producer Roy Raiden, the millionaire who was well known for his drug-fueled sex parties, as identified by the claims made against him from the same actress who accused Ronald of drugging her. One theory pertained to Ronald being in debt to a drug kingpin who wanted his money and had the property search for drugs that Sisman had hidden, but failed to find them. The apartment had been thoroughly searched, and the only things missing were his pistol and both victims' IDs. Now, although authorities were aware of the allegations made against Sisman the previous year from Melanie Haller, the actress, that case was consequently dropped. Police ruled out any connection of that incident to the murders. And because they failed to find substantial amounts of illegal substances in his home, they reasoned he couldn't have been a manufacturer or a trafficker of drugs, which are major offences. Drug possession, on the other hand, like the quantity found, is considered a lesser crime. Therefore, they theorised that the double homicide wasn't drug-related. Investigators then pondered whether it was a robbery gone wrong. However, it didn't make sense that his expensive photography equipment for his two businesses were left untouched, a sign that questioned robbery as the motive. But if it was a robbery, could Ronald have tried his best to protect his highly valued possessions, fighting the robbers off, who then spent a large amount of their energy dealing with him and his girlfriend, thus running out of time to steal anything? All of these reasonings were scrutinised, but due to a lack of evidence couldn't be proven, leaving the police rather perplexed. Could something else have been at play here that was completely missed? This is where the story starts becoming mysterious and twisted, because police received some bizarre information from an informant who revealed to them that a serial killer attached to a satanic cult was behind these tragic murders. The snitch went on to explain he was directly told by a fellow inmate the full details of the murdered couple. Not only that, but these particulars were shared with him 2 weeks before the grisly event. The police were now listening. They learned from this character it was a ritualistic killing planned for Halloween. The apartment belonging to Ronald was described in intricate detail, as well as his employment status as a photographer. The apartment was said to be located in Greenwich Village, but we know Ronald lived in Chelsea, so a slight discrepancy, but still it was close enough, as there's only a mile difference between the locations. Investigators listened intently as the informant, who was very convincing, told them the occupants would initially be tortured before death followed. Afterward, the apartment was thoroughly cleaned of any incriminating evidence. The story gets even more intriguing when an incredible claim was made, introducing a conspiracy theory that shocked everyone. Incredibly, the informant claimed the information he was providing came directly from a notorious serial killer who informed the snitch there was a satanic cult named after him. The cult allegedly employed Ronald Sisman at one point to make a movie for them. The details of the movie, however, were kept from him, as his role was to simply record what was presented. Sisman agreed to this, but after recording it, he felt uncomfortable. The video was made on the 31st of July 1977. A couple were out on their very first date who parked their vehicle under a streetlight near a park in Brooklyn. As they were kissing, someone approached them. Whoever the assailant was, he got to about 3 feet of the vehicle, then fired a number of rounds at them, hitting both victims in the head before running off into the night. The male victim lost an eye but fortunately survived. The female, a secretary named Stacy Moskowitz, died 18 hours later from the injuries she sustained. Incidentally, it was the first attack to take place in the borough of Brooklyn, and the first involving a victim with blonde hair. Additionally, it was the last murder of this particular serial killer. While recording the event, Ronald apparently had no idea it was real. The cult he was working for were known as the Sons of Sam, one of the nicknames of the Son of Sam serial killer David Berkowitz, who killed 6 people and injured several others between 76 and 77 while terrorizing the city of New York. This bizarre story captivated the police, who felt compelled to visit Mr. Berkowitz in prison where he'd been since the summer of 77. To their surprise, he confirmed what the snitch told them. And years later, he even mentioned he knew Ronald Sisman and was actually sitting in a van close to that final murder, watching Ronald filming the scene. In other words, he wasn't the only killer. He explained there were several members of the Sons of Sam cult who took turns committing the murders. Individuals within the cult were assigned various roles. Some were tasked with planning these kind of activities or these events. Others did surveillance or were acting as lookouts and drivers at such crime scenes. If this were true, it would mean David Berkowitz didn't act alone in committing those infamous murders. But we need to remember it's Halloween today, and this story is surrounded by myth. But nonetheless, what do you think about those bizarre claims? Well, let us know down in the comments. In the case of Ronald Sisman, after the perpetrator, or a group of them, ransacked his apartment, authorities deduce it wasn't due to drugs or burglary, but a theory materialised that it was connected to that snuff movie Ronald apparently made. It was believed a copy of the murder movie was somewhere in his apartment, and rumours surfaced he was about to get busted on drug-related offences. Therefore, the Sons of Sam cult felt he might use the video as leverage to get a deal, thus shedding light on the cult, forcing people to rethink whether Berkowitz acted alone. According to the informant, Sisman's ritualistic death occurred after being planned in advance, followed by his home being literally torn to shreds in their quest to find the film. Whether any of this is true or not has never been proven. However, detectives determined that Elizabeth Platzman, Ronald's girlfriend of only a number of weeks, was an innocent girl who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Over the years, numerous individuals, including members of law enforcement, have agreed that the Sons of Sam cult actually existed, and that David Berkowitz had accomplices assisting him. These claims were supported by evidence, such as police sketches of the culprit provided by eyewitnesses, and they were so distinct, it confirmed in people's minds that multiple killers must have been connected to the case. Some of the letters Berkowitz sent to the authorities were filled with devil-inspired names, providing an additional layer, suggesting others were linked to the hideous crimes. He even named at least 2 people who died in suspicious circumstances who were members of the cult. The orders passed down to the Son of Sam were allegedly provided by a 6,000-year-old spirit who possessed a dog named Harvey, owned by his neighbour Sam Carr, where the Son of Sam nickname originated. One fact from the double murder supporting Berkowitz's claim regarding the cult killing Ronald and Liz was this: their IDs were stolen, and this has been observed in similar cult-related murders, where personal documentation identifying the target had been taken to prove that the mission was accomplished. However, understandably, there are many doubters who openly refute this conspiracy theory, convinced Berkowitz worked alone, being completely incapable of operating in partnership with such a group. Unfortunately, although the double murders took place 43 years ago today, they remain unsolved and enveloped in mystery. Now, if the motive for the mysterious double murder on Halloween in 1981 wasn't due to a burglary gone wrong or drug-related and had nothing to do with the Sons of Sam cult, including no connection to serial killer David Berkowitz, is it possible there was another motive? But whatever your thoughts are on this, I'd be keen to hear from you in the comment section down below. Well, I'm Royston. Thanks for watching. Happy Halloween, and I'll see you in the next one.